there's something that was showing. Hi, good morning. How are you, Denielle? I'm so glad that you're here. I am so excited to welcome you to Opportunity Knocks and that people get to hear your story. It's super inspiring. And just for the audience, so that everybody knows what we're here for. So every week on Empower LA, we have a series called Opportunity Knocks, where we welcome a different female entrepreneur to talk about opportunities, just that. It's how we make them, create them, take them, and evaluate them that makes the difference in this world and in this life. So today I'm excited. Oh, yeah. I'm excited to welcome Denielle, who is the co-founder of Top, the Organic Project, which is an amazing state-of-the-art line that is organic feminine care products. Imagine that, my friends. You know that I'm all about clean, and I'm so excited to welcome her because she's going to educate us. Thank God.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Honestly, always an opportunity to be able to share, just our sort of our path, our journey, and where we're at, but love being able to what what your focus is in empowering women, I think is so aligned with what we do every day.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I would love to actually start by saying that, what's so interesting about social media and different platforms is how it brings amazing women together.
Yes.
And by simply the power of meeting a woman who DM'd me on Instagram, Amy Hedges, who actually was doing the Nourish Girls Project. She got on the phone with me and she said, "Oh my God, you need to meet my friend Denielle. She is just like you." And so I felt really lucky that when we did connect, that it was an immediate connection. And I do see so much of what you did in your prior life and your energy.
Yes.
I really relate to. So
Yeah.
it was a true connection.
Yeah. And I love that. No, but I think that's right now we're like in this pivotal time for women. And I think that there is this amazing thing, and whether it's because of COVID, and I think we're all craving these connections with women.
Absolutely.
It's been mind blowing to us. And, whether it's because of the business that we're now into, but it's this constant connection between, hey, let me introduce you to this. Hey, why don't you talk to this person? And every time it's like we're learning from other folks. This has probably been the part that we have enjoyed the most, because it's allowed us to see different sides of business, but also the flip side of us being in COVID right now is a lot of this we'd never had these opportunities before.
Yeah,
and now we do.
It almost tore down barriers or borders, even like through states, through the world, by the way. But in addition, I feel like it really gave us time. It like gave us a gift of time to be like, well, who is this person? Okay, sure, why not? I'll talk to her. Who cares?
Yeah.
And for me, I think I'm like you. We are all about connecting with people and helping people grow and see them successful. So this is just another extension of that.
Yeah.
So I'd love to start by actually having the audience, there's a lot of mothers out there in the audience, and there's a lot of young girls. It's kind of interesting. I span the generations, which is nice. I'd love them to hear a little bit about your background and how you started, and then how did Top come about?
Yeah. So I actually started, Top is my part two in my career, and really in my life. I grew up in Rhode Island, went to college in upstate New York, met my college sweetheart, is now my husband. And we moved to New York. And I went to New York to work in fashion. And so spent almost 20 years in fashion. I went through Ann Taylor. I was there for actually 12 years, went through their training program. And through that time, I got to have all this different experience, which was actually pretty amazing. I was taken under probably about 3 or 4 years in, taken under the wing from the president. And she kind of just groomed me through growing up during this time. And this was a time when, if you think also Ann Taylor in that day, like this was the power woman, like we were wearing suits, like it was suits every day to work. Like it was crazy in the beginning. But this was also a time when the majority of the women that I was surrounded with were these working moms, and they were these powerhouses. And I looked up to these women as these incredible role models. And so those 12 years were so formative to me. And you think of now, especially a lot of the generations now, as nobody spends time 12 years at a company.
Absolutely.
And there were moments that I was, wanted to leave and go see other things, but like they kept creating opportunities for me within. So spent there, went into the recession, lost my job.
I
They got
think
rid of
that's
all of our,
also something, like, just to
yeah,
interject there. I think that's
yeah.
something also, is that we were groomed back then. It was more
Oh
like
yeah.
when your boss actually saw an opportunity for you to learn something different, even if it was
Yep.
something you didn't want to do.
Oh,
They were like,
yes, constant.
exactly. If they saw growth potential in you, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, obviously that's the reason why you were given that
Yeah.
opportunity. Now
Which
it doesn't work that way. They don't wait for that.
No, no. And it's, and I think what I learned early on, and I still always remember this one manager, this Janet Marino. And I was an assistant and this associate had come in and I was like, I deserve that job. And she's like,
Mhm.
no, not yet. You keep working hard. And those words stuck with me for so much. And that was always, now, like I say that to, anybody young who's come to work, is like, you've got to put your time in.
Yes.
And that was her saying to me then, like, yeah, you might be ready for it, but you're not ready. Like, you've got to keep working. And so that was just one thing, it just was like, still sticks to me with me every single day. But so then from Anne, during the recession, I lost my job. So they eliminated all the vice presidents in the company. I got a great severance package, but here I was, didn't know anything else, like pounding the pavement, like going to look for a
Yeah.
job. And this president, Adrienne Lazarus, she took me out to lunch and she's like, Denielle, stop what you're doing. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I got to go find a job. She's like, no, you've got a baby at home. You've never had this opportunity before. I'm telling you right now, stay home and enjoy it. You've got an amazing reputation. You'll find it next. And so I didn't know any different. Here I was, like, it was just over 30 and like, didn't like, just really was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And listen to her. And the other thing she also said, she's like, I know you want to have a second kid, so go get pregnant, which within a month I was pregnant. Within a month I was pregnant.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yes.
That
So
happens to so
anyway,
many women.
yes. So, but I took a year and a half off. It was great for me to have that experience at home and be with the kids. Made me also recognize that I am really good as a working mom, and really knew that I always wanted to go back. And the kids were babies at this point. So from there, very fortunate all through connections. And that's why, again, I rely on so much on connections. Through connections, ended up at Coach. And so I was there for about a year and a half. And in that time, what I had missed and craved so much about what was great about the Ann Taylor days was it was really about, you could kind of reach your arm over into other areas. You could experience different things. At Coach, like, you were in your box. Like, you didn't step out of your box. You work on this together. Like, it was really siloed, and I almost felt I felt outside of my my being, and like where I could actually really give them, tap into my strengths.
Exactly.
So here I am. I'm a Leo, so I'm a total loyalist. And so I get a call from Kate Spade, and they're like, "Hey, listen, come in. We'd love to talk to you." And I was like, I'm here. I've only been here just over a year. Like, I'm good. And they're like, no, come talk to us. They kept calling and calling and calling, and so finally I went. And everything from my early days at Ann, totally different businesses, but one, I am a people person. So if something resonates with me, and that's honestly, that's a lot of my decision making, is like, it's how I feel about the people that I'm sitting with. Are they connecting?
The connection.
And it was immediate. I mean, I fell in love with every single. Oh, it was unbelievable. And I also, it was a brand that I had remember, like, I remember carrying that bag in college. Like, that was my bag. Like, we all like saved all of our money.
Exactly.
The big nylon, yes, like the tote, like we all had it. And so
we all wanted it.
everything, yes. So everything about it was, I made this decision and I moved. And I think the biggest thing is, the craziest part of it all is, they were bringing me in for the vice president of international. I didn't have one day of international experience in my resume. And I kept like wondering, I'm like, what are they doing? Why are they bringing me in to do this? And the biggest part was because what they saw in me. So this was probably like such a pivotal moment for me. And now when I look back, like, they saw something in me that I didn't quite see at that point.
I understand that.
And what was incredible was, what they did see from my Ann days, like what I did there is I grew businesses. I constantly, everywhere I went in Ann, I grew a business. And even at Coach, like, I found like a business in there, like, let me find the green shoots and I'll grow it. So what they needed is, we were expanding internationally. Like, we were blowing up internationally. And so they needed me as a strong merchant to then bring consistency to the different international countries, but also figure out, because I'm an obsessor of customer,
Yes.
obsessed with customer. And so it was, you still then had to figure out the cultural differences of
Every
certain
customer,
countries.
international marketing, every customer's
So yes, so everywhere you go, like,
different.
okay, so
Every
we're talking
customer,
about,
yeah.
yes, we're going down to Dubai. Like, what do you have to have there? What do you have to have in Kuwait versus what do you have to have in China? Like, all the differences. And so it was that part where they saw me, that I could think about all those things strategically, which was incredible. But what it did is it put me so out of my comfort zone in such a good way, because it forced me to, one, create an amazing cohort around me of my peers, leaning into, and that's all we did. This, our executive team, like, we leaned into each other all the
I love
time.
that.
But we were like drinking from the fire hose. Like, we were going so fast that our CEO, he encouraged smart risk taking. And
Mhm.
so he really did push us. Like, we had to, we didn't really have a choice. But the other part that I loved so much about those times too, was that it was such a curious bunch. Everyone was like learning and curious. Like, that's just part of, like, there's actually a quote,
It's
like,
like growth
one
mode.
of the quote, well, also one of the Kate quotes is like, be curious. And
Love that.
that was like, that's who we were. And so I'm a learner. I love to learn. And so that was part of, like, the creation of, like, during that time. So
And it
Kate
seems
was
like you
just,
love a challenge. Like it
yes.
seems like every business that you've taken on from, the and
Yeah.
days to
Yeah.
even now, it seems
Yeah.
like challenge is something that it excites you.
Yes. Totally. Absolutely. And so spent about 2 years there doing the international side of the business. And then I kind of put my hand up, and I was on the road every 6 to 8 weeks, like
Like,
over 2 weeks at a time. And it was, my kids, they were little. So when I started at Kate, my daughter was 2.5 years old.
mm,
And I was on the road all the time. And so 2 years in, I, like, raised my hand. I was like, I don't think I can do this anymore.
Good for
Um,
you for actually raising your hand.
and which was scary, because I was like,
Yes.
all right, what else is going to be there for me? But I had an amazing relationship with the head of HR. And she was like, listen, we actually never really intended for you to be there long term. And I was like, well, hey, why didn't
Thanks for
everyone
letting me
clue me?
know.
Why didn't you clue me in the beginning? Like, I would, maybe I would have, like, been able to, like, go do a little longer. She goes, no, seriously. She goes, we weren't quite ready for the role that we needed you in North America. We didn't, like, there just hadn't been enough scale. And so then they moved
Love
me
the
over
way
to,
HR comes out with that, like,
oh
always.
yes. I
I
was
love
like,
that.
okay. And I love her. Like, she's like one of my, like a near dear friend now. But anyway, so they then moved me over to North America, grew that business, and came to an inflection point in my life.
Mm,
My husband's an attorney,
mm,
and he raised his hand, and New York City entertainment attorney. He's like, I can't do this anymore. I
wow.
don't see any end in sight. Like, what does this mean to us? Like, I'm not the dad I want to be, like, all of those factors. And so I said, well, listen, we'll figure it out. Like, we'll figure this out. My job can sort of move to different places. And the president who took me out to lunch when I lost my job at Ann, I had dinner with her, and she's like, we'll figure something out here in New York. And I was like, no, Adrian, I'm leaving. Like, I'm looking to
Like, this
leave
is
the New
real.
York area. Yes. And so she kept being like, no, like, we'll figure something. So finally, towards, as we're eating dinner, she goes, listen, I just had dinner a couple nights ago with somebody we used to work with years ago at Ann Taylor, and she said she's looking for a chief merchant.
Mm,
And that was for me to then move up to Talbot's. And so it afforded both, from a personal standpoint, that we were able to move our family to Providence, which is where I grew up. So I got to be close to my parents. My parents were 2 miles down the road to me.
I
I'm
love that.
super, like, close with family. So that was super important. The kids, both of my kids are dyslexic, and there's a private school here
That's
in
hard too.
Providence that is amazing. And so it's a school within a school. It's actually the high school. I went there for high school, but at that point they didn't have this other school. So it's a school within a school. So there were, like, all these personal factors, and I was like, we're doing it. We're going up. I'm going to take the job. And so for 3 years, I commuted up to outside of Boston, which was crazy. Left the house every morning at about 5:30, 6 o'clock. Didn't go home until like 8:30, 9 o'clock. And I came to this point in my career that here I was, if I looked back to my 24-year-old self, that was my dream job. I
Mm,
wanted that job so badly, and I worked so hard to get there. And here I was sitting in it, and I wasn't feeling fulfilled. It wasn't the environment also. Like, this was not an innovative environment. This was not a risk-taking environment. Here I
yeah.
was coming from my incredible days of Kate Spade, and even the Ann days. And I was missing, I was like, I'm not learning anymore.
Mm,
And the thought too is like, they were grooming me for the next role. And I was like, okay.
yes.
So
All of
after,
those overwhelming emotions of misalignment.
yes, yes. So it came to this point like, oh my goodness, what have I done? I've moved my family outside of New York. We've moved ourselves up here. You know, personally, everything was like, it was very good.
Mhm.
But professionally, I was like, oh my God, I'm feeling empty. And
Mm.
then it was a little bit of a, just not a great, it was a little bit of a toxic environment. And so my husband, he actually like, he then says to me, he's like, we're done. You're done. This is not healthy. You're a shell of yourself. Like, this is not what we, you know, this is not what we signed up for.
I love the common the thread of the two of you coming together to have this
Oh,
discussion
yeah,
on
yeah,
both counts.
yeah.
So,
He's, I mean, he's, yeah, he has been a cheerleader since the day we met. And we both ways, which has been incredible. But so I left, I walked out with no job, nothing in sight. And I go back to, and I'm a big believer, I always say this, we'll figure it out,
mhm,
because we
absolutely.
really truly will. And it's not like, you know, I was the breadwinner. So here was like, we got kids in private school, like, you know, house and all these things, like, what are we going to do? But really it was, I remember sleepless nights after I had left, like figuring out like, okay, do I want to stay in this industry? Like, is this where I want to be? Am I feeling fulfilled? And every time, like 3 o'clock in the morning, I'd be writing my lists of like, here are the companies that are in the area. Like, here's what interests me here. And I had to almost like pull out all my experiences from the other jobs and say, okay, what did I love the most?
Mhm.
And everything kept going back to building business. And
Yes.
so when I was looking at businesses, I kept being like, oh, okay, there's a couple of these startups, like that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
So here's where life happens. It like, you know, everything, you know, it just
You're like, I
intersected
was
and
making
started.
my list. I had
I
it
know it
clear.
was,
I need
yeah,
startups.
but it is like, it's the intersection of everything, which is just amazing. And so my cousin, who I do my business with, who is honestly like, she is my
What is
rock.
your cousin's name?
So Thyme Sullivan.
Okay.
So we're like one head and two bodies, like truly, like I could not imagine doing this without her.
Oh, I love that.
And so we came together over lunch. She was also at a crossroads. A year prior to that, she had been let go from Nestle. So she was at Coke, Pepsi, Nestle. So she was an executive. And they're like, hey, you've got the decision. You moved your family to Chicago or to DC. She's like, well, no, I live here. So what's my decision here? And they're like, no, that's where you're going. And she's like, I'm not moving my family. Like, this is where we're established. I'm not doing this. I see the people like, you know, all around me doing this. She's like, but I'm not going to do it. So she was at this point. So she was coming up on just over a year of being out. And so her mind was already like turning.
Yeah.
Yes. And her daughter is a little bit older than my daughter. So we've got Josie as her daughter and my daughter is Reese. And Josie was just coming of age to get her period.
Oh.
And so we're talking like we grew up total hippie families. And here we are, like we're chit-chatting. And she's like, hey, so I've been thinking about tampons. I'm like, what are you thinking about tampons? She goes, what do you use? I said, I use Tampax. And she's like, exactly. She goes, Denielle, everything in your house is organic and you're still using you're still using regular tampons. And I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything else, like changed all my skincare, changed my hair, everything in our house. And so we started doing all of this research and really digging in. And we kept thinking about our girls too.
Mhm.
That what is out there for them. And so we started to like, you know, see what else was on the shelf and nothing spoke
Was
to
there
us.
anything? I was just wondering. There's so
So
many.
at that time we had started, so Natracare was one. They've been around for 30 years. And so they were always like the you know, the woman who started, like truly the leader in this space. But there was no, I wouldn't say that there wasn't a story. There wasn't that emotional connection of what it was. She had a great product.
Yes.
But then while we were launching around the same time, Lola was starting to grow, and so was Cora. So those were really the two that were out there. And so at that point, we're like, all right, there's nobody talking to us. So we've got to figure out our space as moms going after these with these Gen Z daughters. And so as we started to build it, we recognized there were very distinct issues within feminine care. Number one was, I love it. There's nothing better.
Love
yeah. I have my dog here. So he may like, you may see him pop up.
I love it.
But the first one was just transparency. So it was like, number one is that what was in the traditional products, you actually don't know what's in the traditional products. They
Yeah.
don't have to disclose what the ingredients are because it's a medical device.
Mm.
And so to us, we were like, wait, we've been putting this inside of our body for years. Like, what do you mean we don't know what's inside it, what's in it?
I didn't know it was considered a medical device. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yep. Yep. So no, so
Fascinating
you
how they
don't.
get around things.
Yes, it is. So yes. So no, that was number one. We're like, okay, transparency, like it should be one ingredient. Cotton, like that's it, organic cotton. So that was the first part of our, and then that was the first pillar. Second was we really dug in. The environmental issue was massive. 20 billion period products end up in landfills every single year, every single year.
That's
And so, and it's all plastic. So we're like, holy, like, and here we are again, our lifestyles, like we were with all those things that we've changed in our life. And there, this is a leading contributor of plastic waste. So we're like, okay, we've got to do something about this. And then the last was, which hit home to us so much, because initially when we had heard about period poverty, we're thinking of third world countries. We're thinking of India, we're thinking of developing countries, Africa. It's here in the United States. And so 1 in 5 women or girls experience some level of period poverty, that they can't go to work, they can't go to school. And we think of our girls, the thought of our daughters and their friends missing 20% of their education, we were like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And so that just hit it to like, as we built out what our 3 pillars were, like that became one that was very important to us, because we did want to make sure we talk about female equality. We as women will never be equal if we don't supply these women with access to safe products, because they can't reach their fullest potential. They can't go to work. They can't do certain things. The girls can't go to school. They can't do after school programs, whatever it is. And so that really hit home of like, as we looked at the umbrella of like, what are the core values of what we're going to build? It was better for you, which is the transparency, better for the planet, and then better for others.
Wow, that is really, it's so amazing and inspiring to hear not only like where you started and what you decided that wasn't right for you and that you weren't aligned and you weren't with your value set, but then to really come up with something meaningful. I mean, beyond it, it's purpose driven. And right now, so much of what is going on in any category for brands is around purpose driven. It's like the key thing. But
Yes.
especially this new generation, they want to be attached to something that means something, not just big box,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
beauty retailer, whatever it might be. So when you stopped to actually look back, that was 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
It was, so we founded a business in 2018 and then officially started January of 2019.
Yeah. So when you look back to those times, and you were still really transitioning out of
Oh yeah.
the work, I mean, corporate world, right?
Oh yeah. We had a lot of bad baggage like that we took with us. We're like, there were many times we're like, oh, what are we doing? Like, stop it. Yeah. And we had
Well,
to check
it's
each other.
interesting that you actually, but it's nice that you have one another, that you can actually look to each other and say, oh, we know this pattern. What are we doing? You know?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
looking back on like 2 years ago, would you say to yourself, you know, what would have happened if I said no?
So I love this question. So, I think the reality is that first year was probably the hardest year for me, because I was so in love with the idea and I was so in love with what we were building. But that first year leaving, I had to check my ego. And here was a woman who was driven by her career. Like, my career really did drive me. And so all of a sudden, I was at the height of my career and I've made this decision to step down. I had to, which was super powerful to where I'm at now and how much more, I'm always a confident woman, but this was a point where it just shifted me mentally as well, because it really reset what was important to me. But that first year, like, there were so many times I had to constantly like be like, just really, I grappled with it. I was fighting with myself and I had to get the story out of my head. And also I would see, like, I'd get recruiters to call me and I get this and all these things. And I was like, my head was swirling, because they're like, you can come back in and you can make this big, huge salary versus like what I'm making right now. Like, it was all these things that were like, oh my God, like, what do I do? And it finally came to a point too. And I think also both Thyme and myself, we had to work through a lot, because here we were brand new working together, like cousin, like it just all these aspects of the two of us settling into being co-founders together. And we got into just, it really was, the turning point for us was the business was all actually, not that we were going to, we could have almost folded, and we made a decision together. And what happened was, this goes back to our environmental issue, was we started out with our business with cardboard applicators, and we're like, we're going to change the world. Everyone's going to go after cardboard. Nobody's changing to cardboard applicators. Like, it's not happening.
They're like those.
And so, yeah. So, but in our minds, we're like, listen, everyone's using their steel straws. Like, this whole, it's not happening. So, but that's how we started the business. Like, our first year of product was cardboard applicator. Like, we're like, oh my God. Like, now we look back and we're like, what were we thinking? But one of the things that we could have made
the environmental thing.
Well, and that was what we did. So that is what, so what would happen is we could have easily then jumped in, and we knew immediately as we started to like really get the feedback from our customers, like they just wanted plastic. And we're like, oh my God, we can't do that. To like, this is part of our belief system. We cannot go to plastic. And so we did a ton of work with our manufacturer, and they were in the process of creating a plant-based applicator. And we're like, we're in. This is it. This is going to be what we're going to do in order to make this successful. So it was this turning point for us together, making this decision. Like, we could have gone plastic. Like, that's where the rest of organic tampons are, is they're in plastic. And we're like, no, we're going to actually really make sure that this is the right product for the quality of what it is, but also for the environmental piece. And so that was the road that we made. And so, I think when I look back to all of this, like, would I, if I had said no, I'm so grateful that I did not, because there were definitely those moments of like that first year of like, what the hell am I doing? And it's all of a sudden you go from a team of 100 people underneath you, and here we are, it's the two of us. We're figuring everything out. But I think what happened is we grew so much in that first year. We were learning again. We were curious. We were meeting amazing people and connecting on a level that was so much different than we'd ever done before. And that's what's just, every day I was like, my bucket is like overflowing.
I love that. Yeah.
And that was really that turning point, I think, for both of us, that we're like, we're in this, like, we got this, and we're just going to keep going.
Yeah. It sounds like the desire to succeed with the inspiration that you had was one of the things that really pushed you forward to continue.
Yeah.
And working through some of the communication issues and early challenges ends up being such a blessing to look back on. There's something I want to touch on, because it's pretty rare that you have, I mean, for me at least thus far, to have somebody that's been at your level in the corporate world, and that they don't, many people that have been at your level in the corporate world either get to that very next level that's like, I guess, the end all, that's the number 10, right? 1 to 10. And, then they basically just take their package and retire, right? And for the most part, especially a woman. And so I would love for you, because I think women that left in that middle management standpoint for children, or not even for children, but then had to make the choice, is this the life that I want to live? And we're really looking up to somebody like you, right? Who had children, but like you said, you were living for your career.
That was it.
So what would you say? Because I think it's interesting. I coach so many women that are at that level, or were at that level. What, that constantly replay the story. Well, what if I would have just stayed? Like, that woman, she ended up dead. I said, you can't compare yourself to that woman. That woman made a choice too. Her choice was different. And so maybe you're here, but look, you're building this. So what would you say to put that woman at ease, that life isn't necessarily easier?
It's, what I think, whether it's at the age that I'm at, also, all of my priorities and also all of my, wants and needs have changed so much. Part of it is because of this change in my career. I am so I'm so much more fulfilled than I ever was before. But I think, for people who at all different levels, I think take the risk. And the risk can be really scary. And And some people just aren't, it's not ingrained in them.
Mhm.
And I learned my risk taking early on in life. And I credit a lot to my parents of like more than pushing me and making me believe that I could do things. But I think for women who may be looking to make a change, one, I would definitely say explore. Don't just, mine wasn't wasn't it was a little rash, but it wasn't. It was something we'd thought about over time. But explore
I
what
didn't
it
live it
is.
with
Like
you, but it
what
doesn't sound
is
rash. I said I didn't live it with you, but it
oh, oh
doesn't
yeah,
sound rash. Sounds like you were replaying the
a
story
little bit.
for a while before you made the decision.
Yes, no, I definitely yes, we were like trying to figure out what we were going to do. But, I think that for women, it's scary. We're balancing so many different things. So we're balancing family, we're balancing friends, we're balancing like the careers. And in what we all have to figure out is what becomes the priority in there. And so yes, for me, my career was definitely that piece, and my family is super important to me.
Of course.
What has happened now though is I feel more centered. I
Mm,
felt so off balance all the time before.
mm.
And in this in startup world, like, listen, you're working, it's part of it's like it becomes part of your life. And you find the times, like, look, before I never had breakfast with my kids, I never had lunch with my kids, I never had dinner with kids, like never, ever, ever, like barely was able to put them to bed. I get to do all of that now.
Mm.
And so I am part of like picking up from school, and like I do get to do those things, but like working a lot. But I think it's becomes this moment for women at different stages of their lives when one, I mean, mine was, yes, I could have kept going up and kept doing to what you said, but I didn't feel fulfilled.
Mm.
And that became more important to me than the paycheck. And that became more important to me than the title, title in these big companies. And that those are questions that people have to ask themselves, like, what becomes important to you? And I have so much tremendous respect for peers of mine who are still going up and doing that because that's what fulfills them.
Mhm.
And
And
for me,
thank God
it
there's so many doing
was, I was missing elements of,
there's a delay
yeah,
in our Zoom.
I was missing elements. Oh yeah, there is, right? Yeah, there is. Yeah. Um, no, but I was missing elements of just learning again and being curious and doing things just differently. And I think that was the bigger part is what what is happening in the workforce right now, and what women can actually do is they can recreate themselves. And there's a lot of power in that. You're seeing it every day. And the unfortunate thing is so many women because of COVID have had to leave the workforce. But I do envision there this surge again of women coming back into the workforce
I
in the
believe
next
it's
couple of
different this
years.
time than other years. I feel like other decades when women left the workforce, they sort of settled. And I feel like what
Yes.
you're saying is there's a research, they're going to figure it out. But it's like we have to stay the course, you know?
Yes, we got to get past through. This is a very difficult time for so many people. But I think that the thing that I hope that women can see is that you can recreate your story. And I don't even want to say recreate because I'm not recreating. I'm actually at a different stage of my story. And I'm at a point where what's great is that I had an amazing foundation. So for me coming in and starting a business was I had a lot of skills that I could apply to it and think, how to build this. But you can start over.
Yes.
And there's scary things. My number one advice to anybody who wants to like do something like this and start over is find your cohort of people.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Who are the women around you, and it can be men as well, but like who are the people around you that are going to support you, that are also going to be tough, that are going to put the mirror up in front of you and say like, hey, not a good decision. But you becomes your sounding board. And then also who are going to cheer you on. Like you need those cheerleaders to be like, you got this, like you go. Like, and that I think for both my cousin, both Thyme and I, like that was the best part. We had an amazing cohort around us. And so that was the piece where like, we got this, we're good, like we're going.
Yeah.
Um,
And I find that, like, to your point about being an entrepreneur and having your cohort or your network or whatever it is that you can look back on, your community, is that the difference is when you're an entrepreneur versus the corporate world is that you really know that those people that are surrounding you when you're an entrepreneur are your community. Like
Yes.
they are surrounding you and there's no doubt.
Yes.
Like you're like, oh, those people are there for me. They get it,
Yes.
you know? I think that's a really great point.
Mhm.
And I agree with you. Whether it be, I don't know that it's starting over, but maybe it's using the skills that you have, just like we both did,
Mhm.
and re-engaging. Like that's what I hear
Mhm.
about both of us in different stages of our life is
Yeah.
we both re-engaged. Like we were like, yeah, we could do this, but is this
Mhm.
what I meant to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
So what would you say is like some of the priorities right now for top and
Ooh.
where you see going? I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of really exciting things
Yeah.
happening and I'm just so grateful to be a part of it and see your journey grow and
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
transition all
Thank you.
my products.
I know.
I mean, at least for my kids.
Oh my God. Yes. Oh my God. Oh my God. No, we are at this incredible inflection point. And, I think that's exciting to see at this stage of the business where we're at. A couple of things for us, we started this because we're moms and we started this because of our daughters. And so really what we're hoping to be able to do is at the end of the day, we've got to figure out how we can help change this conversation. And part of it is that us as moms, we're part of the issue of the conversation because so many women of the Gen X generation, they were the ones that this was like a taboo topic, like everything between menstrual health, sexual health, like mental health, all of it. And so our goal, what we really want to do is, so yes, we're going to provide you with a kick-ass product. Like that's our number one goal. But really at the end of the day, what we hope is that with women and with their daughters, or it may not just be your daughters, but women and these young girls, is that we can help guide and create a place and a community for a, the conversation to change and to create those conversation starters for women, our Gen X, with this younger generation. This younger generation, they're going to change the world. And so we have to make them comfortable because if we think about the women's health in total, from birth all the way to death, is if we can teach these young women to become advocates and empower them around what they need to know about women's health when they get their first period, the longevity and what the impact that could have on them, it's incredible. What we see every day is that I take myself, and we take many women of our age. We didn't really take control of our health until we had kids.
Absolutely.
And so you missed this gap. And I look at all the friends around me that infertility issues, all of these issues, whether the infertility is because the toxins we're putting in our body, all of these things. But if they knew that they had endometriosis, or they knew that PCOS, or some of these other things that around their women's health, if they could have managed that and known that it wasn't right and that there was something wrong, then would that have then at least alleviated some of the issues they may have had later? And so what we really like, the goal is, again, provide amazing product, but let's really teach these young women to take control and be advocates for not just their menstrual health. This is your menstrual, your physical, your sexual, your everything, spiritual, everything, because they're ready to talk about it.
Yes.
We have to be comfortable with talking about it.
So how do you do that? How do you bridge the gap? Like
Yeah.
where's the loose loophole that we haven't closed? Is it beyond the fact that
Well,
Gen X is some of them are very close to having that conversation? I mean, I'm not, but
and
although my
no,
daughter
no,
will
it's
yell at
okay.
me.
Neither way. Yes. Well, but
That's
that's
okay.
okay. Like let them. But I think the bigger part, I think there's two parts. Like what we need to do is we need to create forums and places for women to be able to come and talk about this. I was just on this past week on a Clubhouse panel, and it
I was
was
actually going
amazing.
to ask you if you're on Clubhouse.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
it was amazing. And what it did was it created an entire series. We have an entire series for the next 2 months
you really are.
on this
That's
topic
amazing.
around women's health. Because what came in was like we planned for just one. It was an hour and 45 minutes, and the topic went everywhere. And
Wow,
so it
I love it.
really hit the spectrum of starting with their first periods. It talked about, miscarriage. It talked about like postpartum, like
Mm,
menopause, like
I love that.
everything.
All the
And
taboo topics
exactly.
are
And so
so
what it
cool.
we've got to I mean, we're big believers, time is hysterical. Like, you got to bring a little levity into this conversation. So how do you bring some levity into it so it's not so taboo and like, oh my God, I'm so uncomfortable,
I'm so
and
scared.
just make it normal? And so we're really working. I don't have an answer today, but that's the piece that we're working on.
So
We
what
recognize,
is the house called? What is the room called in Clubhouse? Not everybody knows what Clubhouse is it's a
oh,
brand new
yes.
platform where I kind of call it like podcasts meet like conferences.
It is. It allows you to be like on panels. You're not on video. It's all through your phone. And it really allows you to connect and network and have these forums to have all different types of discussions. I mean, it's unbelievable the discussions that are had on there. I try to stay very focused just to the women's health ones because you could get lost.
Yes,
It's like the
very.
Wild West. It's the Wild West in
Yes.
some areas. But no, honestly, it's called Women's Health. I forget actually what the title of the panel is. But we are creating this young woman, she moderated it, and she got all these incredible women. We've got doctors on the panel. We've got actually a sex expert on the panel. We've got myself, two
That's
investors.
amazing.
So it's been interesting because what it did is it also just, it set in me that holy moly, this opportunity is massive. Women are craving this.
Yes.
And we have to figure out, what does it look like? How does it? And that's where this has been incredible. It's like being able to talk with all these other women who are interested and are doing things in a small way. How do we bring this together and really like amplify this message? And I think that's the piece of like, that's what we're hoping to start to continue to build.
What I love about it is that it's so grassroots. And so there's such a huge opportunity here. Similar, we've had the conversation around like Beauty Counter and stuff, and
Yeah.
how she has all these microcosms of communities like
Amazing.
that are
Yeah.
like cultish followings around clean beauty. And it's very similar to
Yes.
that. And this is yet an extension that needs to be exploited, that more people need to be following into,
Yeah.
clean and organic, like feminine care
Yeah.
products.
Yeah.
And I do think it begs for like amazing conversations with young and older. Like, it's a
Yes.
little harder to educate the older and
Hmm.
change their behaviors,
Hmm.
but changing
Hmm.
behaviors are beautiful ways of opening new opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, I mean, that's the one big piece. The other big thing is we've got a lot of stuff going on retail, which has been exciting. So we're about to launch with Sprouts. So that will be
Very
huge
cool.
for us, just a huge footprint for us. And we're about to launch very, very quickly is we're launching with Target as well. And the
Oh,
reason Target is bringing us in is for our first period box, because who we are focused on and who the target, they call them the guest, the target guest is about the mom and daughter. Like, you think about it, all moms and
absolutely.
daughters are all going to Target. They're like having,
Oh, we love
shopping
going
trips.
to Target.
Everybody
Yeah,
does,
we
like,
love going to
especially
Target.
my cousin jokes all the time. She's like, Josie, like, the only place we've gone in COVID is Target. Like, that's it. That's our shopping experience. And so it resonated so much with the buyer there. And she really, like, she was like, oh my goodness, like, I need this for my consumer.
So
So
tell me what the period box is, so that,
yes.
like, because I've been on your website and I've seen it, but I want
Yeah.
to know more about it.
Yep. Yep. So it's the first period box. There's actually a couple other brands have them out there, but we call it our box of confidence. And for us, it's really allowing this young preteen to go and explore and try, and like, it's really like open up, unwrap, and it starts the conversation. Look, the box itself is not about, it doesn't go into crazy depth about puberty and all this. What it is, it's the first exploration. Because then what it does is then it does take you, we've partnered with an organization called Girlology, which is amazing. They're an incredible resource. It's founded by two doctors, and they're both moms as well, pediatricians. And they created this because they kept having moms and in coming for doctor's visits, moms coming in and being like, I have questions about this. And so it really spans from preteen all the way to almost off to college. So it really talks about, puberty and period. And then it goes into like, sexual health and also mental health and getting into drugs and all different aspects of what's going to happen to a teen. And so we partner with them, which is amazing. And so they have, what's great is that they have this incredible ebook. And so within this box of confidence, you have all the product, you've got this amazing little pouch, and then you also have access to them as well. So it really gives you the tactical piece of the product, but then it also gives you the resource of the knowledge and the education and the tools.
Yeah, because I feel like that is such a, I mean, I know things have changed quite a bit. I mean, kids girls get educated way earlier because
Mhm.
obviously periods are coming a lot earlier.
Yep.
But however, I feel like once it actually happens, because I think about how much time my children got educated
Yep.
about getting their period, and we even explored like at least a year before, like on
Yeah.
wetting the tampons and the different things.
Yes. Yep.
But the reality is that when it actually happened, it was like all that information went out the window. And so
Mhm.
having a resource like yourself or like
Yeah.
Virology is like so important to this process,
Yeah.
because I feel like as you're talking about being on that clubhouse like room and everything like that, it's a constant education. Like it
Mhm.
doesn't end,
No.
until your period ends,
Yeah. Yeah.
And even
Yes.
then you're still educating yourself.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Yep. Yeah. No.
Well,
So yeah.
that is amazing for us to learn about. So we know about the Target opportunity. We know that
Mhm.
there is a period box. And
Yep.
then what was the thing just before that you were talking about?
Sprouts. We were launching in Sprouts. And then we've got a handful. Like in total, we're about in 1,000 stores. But what we love about Sprouts is we recognize that, our consumer definitely is that one who mindset wise is she's leads a little bit more towards this natural and organic lifestyle. And so to be able to then go into that footprint is incredible. And it's all 400 stores. So it's really spanning, from East Coast to West Coast. And we see our footprint, it sells everywhere. So between our own website as well as Amazon and a couple of other websites, we sell in every 50 state, in all 50 states.
So how are you
So,
advertising? Because that's always a
so
question for entrepreneurs, like if that doesn't
yeah,
it. Is it
you
word
know
of
what?
mouth?
So much of what we've done so far has actually been very organic. So we recognized early, we bootstrapped this business. So in the beginning, we bootstrapped. We raised $1 million last year, and right now we're in the midst of raising again. And really for us is we recognize the fact like the cost of acquisition for customer acquisition is enormous for these direct to consumer businesses. And more important to us was getting out into retail. This is again what we knew from our previous lives was the diversity of distribution was the most important thing. And
Exactly.
we knew we were going to be out there. And that's where, and then, we have COVID fallen in the middle of all of this, but the
Just love it.
customer purchases her feminine care. She buys it in stores. Like that's 85% of the consumers buy them still in stores. So that was the road that we always knew. So really, as we started to work through like our dollars and cents, like it didn't go crazy into advertising. What we're about to do is a very large influencer campaign. Because we do feel like I go to like these beauty counter ladies and I think about them of like the influence of like what their word of mouth and what they're going to share, like you listen. And so
Absolutely.
that's really where we're going to start to build. And then we're going to go into advertising. We've got a whole plan coming up. But really up to this point, a lot of it was just like we've built it through this word of mouth and just our story.
Wow. Well, it's inspiring, and it says a lot to a woman who's just trying to start off,
Yeah.
that you don't need a lot. Sometimes it is the idea,
No. Mhm.
and all you need is Denielle.
Yeah, no, but what it is no, but what it
Danielle,
is, I mean, listen,
you're
it's, I know, seriously, it's what I said earlier, it's hard work, it's persistence. I think you also have to just really recognize early on, like you're going to take, 2 steps forward and you're going to take 5 steps back, and you've got to just persevere through that. And it's patience.
Mhm.
That's really hard for a lot of people. Like you want to see it successful tomorrow. And that was probably actually that first year too. We were like, oh my God, why isn't this happening like right away? Like there's patience. Yes, exactly. So there's just that patience piece too, which I would probably say is probably one of the most important things in those
Absolutely.
early stages of the business. So yeah.
Well, I am so grateful for the time that we had
Thank
today,
you.
and I'm a big fan of yours and your
Thank
cousin.
you.
I'm going to meet
Yes.
her
Thank
someday.
you. She's you would love her, love her.
And I look forward to continuing to see your journey and seeing the growth of you guys.
Thank
And
you.
I will always support you. So
Thank you.
I just wanted you to leave people with your Instagram and
Yep.
or anywhere where they
Absolutely.
can
Absolutely.
products.
Yep. So definitely follow us. Follow us on Instagram. We're Top Organic Project. You can follow us on Facebook. We also have TikTok. We're about to launch Pinterest. So TikTok's actually fun
I love
because it's one of the young women who works with us. She just graduated from college and she dressed up in our tampon costumes. That's
Oh my
actually
God,
one
I
thing you
love
should hear.
that.
And that's how she does, like, it's hysterical. So that's actually was one of the other things that changed our business, was my cousin dressing up in the tampon costume. But follow us all throughout those. You can also on LinkedIn as well. And our website is toporganicproject.com. And you can definitely, we're Amazon, we're FSA store. And then you heard about where we're about to go.
Well,
so
we
lots
will
of
be
good stuff
looking for you in Target and Sprouts for sure. And I'm sure
thank
many
you.
more retailers.
Oh,
will.
and also where you are, we're in Erewhon.
Oh, good. Oh, perfect.
Yeah, we're in
It's
all the
funny,
Erewhons.
I
Yep.
just, we don't need to get into that. I was going to say, I just
Yes.
interviewed somebody from there. Anyways, so it was actually such a pleasure. And I, again,
So
thank
wonderful.
you so much. And I look forward to the journey and us continuing to build our relationship. So
Thank you for the opportunity.
oh, I'm grateful.
All right.